back for this recording. We're doing the get it done and we're going over housekeeping. The only other thing is, that's it, is afterwards, once this is finished recording, we will add it to our webinars, which is found under the help guide in a section that's titled webinars, and it'll be on family portal and form building. Okay. So on the agenda, we want to talk about how to get clear on training requirements, especially like in coordination with training inside of SAM and what things might want to be, might need to be tweaked in your site a little bit. So we'll talk about this in between timing and expectations for completion for the families, what you guys are looking for. And then I'll show you options for sharing. I've thought about like forms, using forms to do it and having some collection through that, or even for agencies with a little bit simpler training schedule, that this could actually work pretty well for this. So I'll show you how I think about that. And then we're going to jump into setup and building. So we'll talk about having a provider year if your site doesn't already have that. And then we'll build some of the forms and talk about checklists too. And we can keep on the discussion just as much as we feel like we can do in this time that we have together. So some of the first things that I need to talk about are the decisions and actions. So I think a lot of times people want to jump right into SAM and do things, but we need to just get clear, pull all of your information together so that it's easier to articulate, put into the system. So when I think about timing, I'm thinking about whether or not this training is going to repeat itself. And so I find talking to different agencies, it's different between various programs, between the states, as far as what needs to be done. So for those of you who need, a set of training that's just one time only, it's going to be a lot simpler than if we need to think about this training is needed to be updated every year with a home study update, that sort of concept, or with a license, or it's dependent on a specific license year. So it actually doesn't have to do with the preparation for, well, generally you'll need these training lessons for the initial license, but then to maintain each subsequent license, the parent education records that need to be collected, the 30 hours or so that's required for your families. Okay. And then I think that you also want to think about who's going to complete this. It's totally fine if your team enters this data into the system. Some agencies actually really like just a simplified, all parent education's been done, meaning like they're not actually tracking each individual type of training that is completed in the system, but just a sort of wrap up that it's all done and the date that it's done. So you'll need to sort of decide where do you stand and how much is enough and how much is also too much data entry for the team and your families to complete. As far as the actions that go with that, so this was not the easiest slide for me, to be honest, but we want to make sure that the table structure is allotted for. So a lot of the foster care agencies I hear or I speak with, they often need a level above the actual training records themselves to summarize the training that's done within that year, which is generally the license year. So as a new license is open for the family, so too opens what we've deemed the provider training year. Is just a level that says from, I'm going to use a calendar year to make it easier. In January 1 to December 31st, 2020, we need to complete 30 hours for each parent. And so it needs to roll that up. But the next year is a whole new set of training, right? And so you're needing a level above what might be available right now in your system. So we'll look at that and I'll show you how. And then I also like to see not only your family portal built out, but internally those parent education records built inside the system for your team to access as well. Okay, so seeing it from both sides, I think is important. And I guess like really the decision here is going to be, are you going to build the public forums out, or are you going to build these in checklists? The other things that I think need to be done here are thinking about what expectations you want to have for what means that parent education record is complete. And so I'm thinking about that between, do we want to upload a certificate and the completed date and call it good? Or do you want your families to complete a questionnaire? And now the questionnaire starts to get a little bit more complex because you start to think about, well, do you have different questions for different trainings, or is it a simple, 3 or 4 questions or open sort of narrative form for the family to complete, sort of a book report on what they've learned from the different trainings? And I think that varies. So I would love to, when I switch off this screen, sort of like maybe open it up for a few minutes just to talk to you guys about what that's going to look like. The other thing that I think as far as actions is, you guys just need, when you take the action, so you've got the information, you start making decisions about what you want, and then really separating it out for your different programs. Okay, what's required for each different program that's needed, and for each training, what are your expectations for that specific piece of training? If you have lots of different questions, actually pulling the questions together before you get into SAM to start working. So really having your information ready to go, which is a part of the project that just actually doesn't happen inside the system. Okay, it's before you get there. So I just want to sort of open it up to find out for folks on the call, what does training look like for your programs? Let me see if we can find any sort of consistencies. I think there's going to be a lot of differences. And maybe I'll go ahead and ask a question. I saw that Marcy joined, and her question sort of, we were already going to talk to this, but she was asking me, and she so very kindly waited for my response until this call to talk about it with everybody. So just want to get some clarification. Marcy provided me their education list yesterday, but I guess I want to ask you, Marcy, is that a one-time for your families? Is there ever a need for them to repeat any of that training for their program? Yeah. Or is it sort of a one-time preparation for them?
That list is just a one-time. They just do it one time throughout their international process.
Okay. Do they need to do any of that, any additional training in addendum? Like, or is that's it, and I don't know how many hours. There's nothing in what you provided me that shows sort of an hourly count, but my assumption is those were specific requirements that family, but every family needs to complete.
Yeah, so I have that list in SAM, but it's not working how we'd like for it to, I guess, which is why I have all the questions. But so there are some items on that list that are child specific. So if the family is open to HIV, then they do HIV education. If the family is open to adopting an older child, they do older child education. Mm-hmm. So that list included those two, even though not every family is going to complete them.
Okay. Some of them, and I was hesitant to actually show that particular list, Marcy, because I think it's connected to a real family, not like a test family.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I opted not to show it. And I just sort of took some of the things, which I think are all what you mentioned, like the HIV training, the transracial older child. Some of them I noted I was almost like DHS country specific training, which I was curious if that was sort of encompasses maybe a few trainings.
That's just one particular exercise that we have every family do on the Department of State website.
Okay, got it. Were any of the trainings you feel like needing to be broken down further than what you'd shared?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then I guess I'm going to ask one more question for you and then open it up to other folks too, is for those trainings, are you asking different questions? Do you just want to see a certificate of completion? Kind of what are your hopes for families to share with you about those trainings?
Yeah, for some we have just like I understand that I am writing. I acknowledge that I have read The Connected Child. Like some of them are more just like they're signing and we're going to give them a certificate. Others are more like question and answer, like a short questionnaire after they've watched a video.
Okay. And I assume then the questionnaire is going to be different depending on that training then.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be training specific.
Okay. Okay. And okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. We'll start to build things today and then we'll talk about how that's, the more that's different, the more complex it's going to get, which I think is fine. We just need to sit through and work with it. And I'll show you with filters and things like that, how we want to do that, because for your process, it's a one-time deal, like one and done. I think it allows you to maybe use the checklist and that will be easier to work from, I think, than the sub forms. Okay. So we'll talk to that a little bit. Looking at Carrie's information, she's saying that the training hours are primarily yearly. There are a couple of trainings that are required every 2 years. So then there's like a difference of the time frame. So, the trainings are expiring. Carrie, I don't know if you want to elaborate on your program and what the trainings are for each year. Are they the same each year besides the CPR? Does anyone, they are the same. Okay, so if they have to take, maybe if you want to give me one example of a training that they're taking annually, they're taking that training every year, maybe like a communications class, something like that, like a nonviolent communication or something, so that they just remember that skill and practice it. And then they're going to be different. So I'm curious if that training ends with, is it due at the time of a home study update, like preparation to complete the home study? And I guess let me say this is I use the home study a lot because as a base table to deal with sort of more detailed complex things like background checks or like these parent trainings, because it seems to correlate to getting a completed approved home study. These trainings are a necessary part of that. So I'm curious if that is correct, so that potentially the home study is a level by itself, or if there's a need to have a licensing year. And maybe I think Melissa Venel or Brittany are on, and I guess I'm curious from your aspect. I know in your site we built the provider training year. I'm curious if we could have utilized the home study. Would that have been something that made sense to you guys?
For our specific agency and the way we do things, I know that they want to keep the home study separate
Okay.
from the parent education.
Okay. And I think go ahead.
Also, we're only doing updates of home study every 2 years, but we're tracking parent education every every annual year.
Got it. So, right. So, I mean, what I really want to let everybody know is the database may need to be adjusted to provide some kind of level of wraparound around these parent education records. If it's not a one time, I think when it becomes an annual basis, we probably want to separate it. And I thank you guys, Melissa and Brittany, for talking that through with me about separating the home study. So it sounds like the ability to just sort of separate out concerns. Yes, these things sort of relate, but we're keeping the concerns separate. I think is probably a wise choice in setting up the database structure. Okay, so let me jump out of this conversation and back over to just what we're looking at, and then I'm actually going to jump into Sam and talk about the building of these things. So these are just screenshots, quick pictures of the two different things, and then I'll actually jump into the site and show them to you in real life. But using sub-forms based on the parent education table, the system would sort of look like this, and it would be lines of these are the required trainings is probably what you would share with them, and the family could add, or there could be a little green pencil to edit, which of course I added after I took this screenshot to edit, so we can tell the family these are your required trainings. Click the green pencil, you're going to enter in either uploading a certificate, entering the date, or potentially it could take you to the specific form. I think these annual trainings, if you have different questions based on this sub-form look over here, we're going to have to utilize different sub-forms in order to allow different edit forms to be connected. Okay, so it builds in a level of complexity that we'll need to think about. On the checklist, I think that's going to work better for one-time programs. It's going to be a cleaner list. I would probably put that list on the case table, and you can again sort of like you could have a download form that maybe is a PDF that links the family off to other information. They could then upload the certificate that they complete for that, or complete a form. I would think you could also create a form that is taking the family to a view form that has all of these details. And so I'm sort of throwing out the types of forms in the system in hopes that you've all read and totally remember all of these different terms. But should you not, I will now show you what I'm talking about. Let's jump over here. Okay, so I guess I also want to get really clear with you guys on when I say internal versus public forms, just in case you're new. Internal forms are going to look like these forms here, where you're inside the system and you're poking around. Parent education in our master site is right off the sidebar of the cover page for family. However, it could be found in other forms also. It sort of depends on what works for your team and where your team may have moved things. I sometimes add things up under case details, okay? But parent education records are here. These education records, what we're looking at here is a sub-form. So sort of everything up in here is a sub-form. This sub-form is on a greater container form that sort of enwraps the whole thing, okay, or a main form. I sort of use those two terms interchangeably. Subforms aren't free floating though, okay? They have to be on something else. And most multi-record tables, those types of tables that contain many records, right? Like you could have 3 parent education records or 10 or 30. All of those records must be stored on a subform. Okay. The thing with multi-record tables is that sometimes you will see them set as some of the forms that you interact with as one at a time. That means when I add a new parent education record, I'm going to add just one record at a time. So I want you guys to just sort of know my terminology, because it'll make building the forms easier, where we can select this, right? We select whatever we want and enter one record. It is quite possible to add 5 records at a time if we wanted. But often we're using both, I guess, simultaneously together. Like it works well when you can see a whole list of these education records, but edit or add a single one at a time. Okay, so we'll play between the two here. And then same thing goes for the edit is a green pencil. It's always going to be shown as a green pencil. That's what that means for the system. Okay, so internal form. When I go back to the cover page and go to the checklist, let me go over here and go to their first record, or their first case has checklist on that. Come on, click. I created a parent checklist here. The checklist will be under the checklist section, and I've listed each of the trainings. And then I've really just left this in this particular configuration with an upload, like to upload the certificate. We would, for Marcy's project, probably link also to forms that have the questions when they're needed. So like a CPR training, you might not need a questionnaire, but maybe behavior during teen years is a video they have to watch and they need to answer a couple of questions about that. So we can actually link to a form. And so we'll talk about checklists a little separately from the subform, because I do want to get you, make sure that you know how to build the subform on the family portal. Okay. So now we'll talk about public forms. We use family portal as a term to describe a single sort of landing page for your family that links off to different public forms that they're allowed to see. So public forms sidebar links are here, or public form links rather. And then I'm going to jump into this from the family portal. Okay, and I'm already logged in. Okay, so this isn't really talking about the family portal, but just to make sure, family portal is a view form that is set as a public form that families can access. They can, log in and access this information. Okay. On this, under an additional form, under home studies and approvals is where I've added a subform for licensing and education. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this test site is actually just build an additional one so that you can see how I'm building this subform so that you understand how it's based off of. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to go right back to the public forms links, and I will click on edit next to the family portal, and I'm going to put it parent education right on the cover page, and then we can, not the cover page, this family portal landing page, and then we'll decide, cool, we want to move it to a different spot, okay? Here, under advanced options, there's a link called add subform. And so from here, I'm going to really set this up like I don't already have a subform. So if one existed that's a public form, you can choose it from the list. But I'm actually going to use this little link here, create new form. And we'll start from scratch. And so this is going to ask me first, like, what table am I basing this off of? A lot of times, what you're trying to build, that table may already exist, you can look through, and it probably is labeled the type of information that you're trying to collect, right? So if I were wanting to build about background checks, I can use this table. I probably am not going to put it on the case table, but I really want to get all the information about background checks, so I'm going to add it to that table. In this case, I'm doing parent education. One thing, do you see this little tilde mark next to it? Every table that has that little tilde mark is not a multi-record table. So the majority of tables do not have that little symbol. They actually have nothing next to it, because most tables are multi-record, that you're creating history, you want repeated. There's many records that might be stored about that particular topic. Okay. So here I'm going to label what this is. I'm going to put, this is parent education for landing page. Okay. Just so I can be really clear, but I probably don't want to label it that way for my family to see. So I'm going to title the section more what I want them to see. And I could do something totally different for your program, right? So I really love when we see communications in the forms that are more friendly, they're more welcoming to the family. At this point, I'm going to set this as a multi-record subform, because I don't want them to add one at a time. I want to see a whole list of what's required. Okay. Or allow them to edit that. Okay. The view form is what I'm going to set up here. And then I'm going to put things as a single row. This can all be adjusted. I think for multi-record, in general, horizontal layout orientation looks better, is more cleaner to see, but that's not always the case. You can have dual columns and kind of that vertical format set up. I will show you an image of that, the difference here real quick. Now that those are my settings that I need to set up, and now I'm taking to this page where I can add fields. So let me just cover orientation with you again really quick. The home studies, these are set up in a vertical format. So there's dual columns. If I add a new home study, and I'll say this is an updated home study, I'm just going to stick another date on there. I get a separate row. Okay. So that's kind of what it looks like if you have dual columns in a vertical format for multi-record tables. So it's totally appropriate in some situations. For background checks, however, I think we've got it as a horizontal setup, and it's very long and lean. Okay, you can have one row, which this appears like a single row, or you can have multiple rows. The more rows you have, the more, I think, the system doesn't always align perfectly with the spacing of the fields because of the field title and maybe the field type, whether it's a radio button list or a text box, right? It has different widths to it. So I love seeing things really clean. I think they're easier to see, and then using details forms to see the difference. Okay. That's sort of the two. Let me jump back over here. Now I'm going right back into adding fields to this. So this is the showing just probably like the title of the parent education record type, the date it was completed. We might want to say, you know, a signature like Marcy was talking about, maybe just like, yes, it's complete. If the date doesn't do that enough for you, that you want maybe a typed in signature, you might also have an upload field. Okay, so I can choose parent education records and choose them one by one, but I also like using this little link over here at the bottom, add multiple fields, to make a selection of all of them all at one time instead of kind of having to come back and forth through here. So in this, I'll do the certificate, the date complete. I'll say the hours earned, the topic title. The type, I think, is a field that says, is it web-based? Is it live? Whatever. You might have a memo. Okay. These are all the fields that you want to collect are going to be dependent on your decisions that you've made previously for what you want to collect. So I'm going to reorder them using the drop-down box. If this ordering isn't here, edit field positions will allow you to do that. Okay. So I might put that in number 6. Number 2, date completed, the certificate, number 5. It looks good to me. Now I'm going to jump back over to the family portal page. And now we've got down here a subform. Is anybody building this at the same time by chance?
We might need to, if someone is, we might need to go back a couple steps.
Okay.
Then.
Where did you get lost, Jess?
I didn't get lost. I'm not building. So I'm like making sure that the right step before this, when you're selecting those,
the fields.
The fields. Yeah. That might be a place where, maybe some more thought is needed or more time is needed. Yeah,
totally. So as you're building you may decide you want a different, a new field, right, onto the form, or let's add a new field first. Okay. So I can go and use the sidebar here on the form customizer of that form to add it. Sam is showing me the family table, but because I'm talking about parent education, I'm going to keep it right here. So I can choose the drop down here, and I've actually chosen all the fields that really relate to it, but maybe we put when it was entered by, and we can save that and add that field. So now it gets added over here on the family portal in the view. If I refresh, we'll have another field. And this is particularly getting like pretty squashed. So which is going to limit our ability to put so many on a single line, especially I think if your family portal has the sidebar, and probably too if you're using large font on it. What I don't know is if the sidebar moves at all. Let's see. Okay, so that's one thing. Then the next thing that I will show you is let's remove fields. Okay, so this is going to be X's. I'm going to get off the memo. Probably we're not going to ask for people. And nowadays it probably doesn't even matter where it was because it's all internet based for the next probably year or so anyway. So it is, right? And that may or may not have even been important anyways. So I can remove that. If I go back to my family portal and refresh the page, it's going to refresh. So Sam is showing us these things dynamically. Okay, so it's cleaned up, a lot smaller bits of information that we're sharing. The other thing we might do is add a field that we wanted to show. So maybe we want to show just an acknowledgement, we'll go with what Marcy said, like this acknowledgement. I'm going to keep this part pretty simple because I just want to start you off. Acknowledgement of completion. And maybe we want to call this to the family as add your signature to let us know you're done, whatever, right? Oops, come here. And then I'll set it as a text box field. And a regular, okay? So now if I go back to the family portal, One thing I want you to notice about this, and I've done this right at this moment sort of on purpose, is that this is just a display. So it is just showing us information as the family. I can't actually click on any of this and change any of this data. This works for all kinds of things, okay? So all types of different tracking that you might want to show. If you just want to share information like, I was going to say accounting, but I think there's, well, for showing invoices there, that's an extension that had not been thought about when the invoices was built. But if you wanted to show AR records that have come in through SAM, that would be great. You're just showing them this. What the family can't do is do any editing, okay? And so we really need to link some additional forms to this to allow them to edit and say, yes, I completed this. Here's my certificate. So those are the two things I'm going to do. And then we'll separate out a little bit more into what, when there's different questions for different parent education records, if you choose to go about it like this. Okay, so on this landing page, what we need to do here, or excuse me, on this sub form for the landing page is we need to link it to a form that's an add edit form, okay? The way I'm going to do it and the way I'm going to share with you here is going to be going back and starting from the table that this is built on. I'm going to start the form that way. So did I show you? I've now shown you how to add a subform to another form. Now I'm going to show you just from the table how to build an add edit form. Okay. So I'm going to right click here and open that in a new tab. And over here under advanced options, and then really advanced options, is a link that says create new form. So now I don't really have to choose what table I'm building. This is already skipping that step, as I know it's starting originating from that particular table. So this is going to be for the family portal, and this is going to be an edit parent education record. And I'll call it that too. Oops, did I get that? I don't see. I'm going to pop that. This time, instead of choosing multi-record, I'm going to choose a one at a time. So although parent education is a multi-record table, I can have, like I mentioned before, different types of forms that associate with that sort of table. And in this case, I actually only want to do edit one parent education record at a time, or add it one at a time, okay? So we saw that through the family portal, families cannot edit view forms. So this is going to be an edit form, okay? They do not have the same function to click each field on a public form as it does internally. So this is an edit form. Then I can choose my orientation. I'm going to keep it as horizontal. I'll do it as multiple rows just so I can show you that. When you're building multi-record forms, particularly a multi-record form that's a view form, you're almost always going to need some sort of container. So you can click here. But in our case, I didn't need to take that step the last time because the main form, the family portal itself, is the container for that subform. Okay.
Looks like Brittany's got a question.
Yeah. Thank you.
In the chat. Mm-hmm.
Let me see here.
I figured it out.
You did? Well,
Yes.
you did? Where were you stuck on?
I was stuck on the form that you clicked on from the parent education table. You clicked on create new form, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. And so let me back up a step just to help everybody who's sort of new to form building. At the top of forms, this is where Sam's got a lot more support. Sometimes it feels a little confusing of where has it taken me, but within a form, and I guess the reason why I use multiple tabs also is to keep my place. At the top of a form, Sam is telling you about this form. So it is a public form. It is a multi-record view only. It is a subform, and it is based on here are the tables. And so I had clicked on that particular table. That's what I clicked on. And then from there went advanced options, really advanced options, and create new form. Oops, shucks, and I don't really want to do that one more time. But what I could also do is create a multi-record standard form setup. That makes some connections for you. It don't remember if I click this, if it allows us to set it as a public form. So that may have to be a secondary step when you go through that. Actually, 100% it is, because it's very simple what it actually asks you to do through this. I'll show you multi-record standard setup once I finish this edit the parent education. So once I labeled the type of form it is, I chose my settings that it is an edit form, my orientation. Sam's taking me to this page that's sort of like, well, now where do you want it to go? I would say this might get a little confusing because right now this particular form is not set up as a public form. So my options here are going to be anything but the family portal forms. That is what we want to connect it to, which is going to feel probably a little frustrating. So what we'll need to do is set this form as a public form. So do that under advanced options, advanced form properties. And then there's a link that allows it to become a public form. So it's like public form. It's not set as a public form. I'm going to set it as yes. Okay. Then if I go back to my form, I've got no fields because we've just not yet added those fields. But I can go back here to public form properties, which is where I just left off, and choose where I'm going to enter this or to save. So after the information is saved, I'm now given a whole host of these public forms, and I'm going to take them really, I think, right back to the family portal, because this happens to be right on that cover page, that landing page. Okay. And I press save. So now I'm going to add fields. And here I'm going to, I really like going to the add multiple fields. So I will say it's the date completed. In this case, okay, we might not want to show the title and the topic because they're clicking the green pencil next to it, right, to that specific topic. So we don't actually want them to adjust that it's not CPR. We want them to give us the certificate for the CPR or acknowledge that they've completed it, right? So these are the 3 dates that I'm going to enter. Even things like hours earned, that might be something that your team holds. If you approve it, then they've earned those hours, okay? So I'm going to press save there. So here is our form. We'll say, put that as a date completed. They'll sign and upload the certificate. Okay. So this is not linked right now to that parent education. So I'm going to jump back to that. This is that parent education for the landing page. And under advanced options and form properties, I can link the edit form to it. Well, this is not giving me the form that I want, and I have a feeling that this form is not a public form, so I'm going to check that. Advanced options, advanced form properties, public form, it is not, so I'm setting that as a public form. So Sam is filtering what forms are available to us. If I go back to the form, and go to form properties under advanced options. Now here in the edit, I've got the edit parent education record, which is what I just built. And I'm going to suggest right here that maybe we're not adding any add form to it. That if this is going to be the education that we require of that family, we're drafting out what that's going to be, and they can go and edit to update information for us. Okay, so let's save. That, I think, should be the setup. Now if I go here and refresh the screen, we're going to see little green pencils when it refreshes. Okay. And so when they complete this, they can come in here and edit this. Okay. And then upload a document. Oops, that actually upload. Choose it. And of course, I don't even have new computers are so new. I don't have anything down here yet. And just save this as a PDF real quick. Save that and put that on my desktop. Save. Cool. So now I can choose a document record, go to my desktop and go here. Maybe that will go. Okay, so now I'm taking right back to my my family portal landing page. I have shown right here, and has shown this for, because I forgot that you shouldn't really show documents for download to the family. So things that, let's say that documents that they have uploaded, showing it to them is not going, of course, this will do it for me because I'm logged in, but the family essentially is not logged into your site and will not be able to re-see this. So you should not show them these forms again. Okay, so once it's uploaded for them, it's sort of one and done for them at this point in time. Okay, I want to ask if there's any questions with just that setup, because then I think I want to get a little bit more complex potentially. But I want to make sure that you guys feel okay with where we're at. Jess, how do you feel? You feel all right?
I think it's making sense to me. I'm just not sure. Is anyone else building out there?
I think Brittany is.
Or need to go back, or are we good?
Heather from Madison, I see that you're on. I'm not sure that you guys are ready to do parent education. I think that might be what you had told me the other day, but curious if you're following kind of what's going on right here.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hey.
I am following, and you're right. I have not had time to do this yet to begin building our family portal, but am hoping in the next couple months can, get back to this. And, I created a couple checklists over the past year and a half or so, which we have been using, but I haven't done the family portal yet, nor the education part, but plan to.
Okay. Does this part, as far as like building this subform, I'm not sure if you built these sorts of things before. Are you following along with these steps?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. I mean, I think when I do it, I will probably have to rewatch some of this. I'm trying to take notes a little bit, but having the ability to go back and rewatch this is great when I'm ready to do it. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's good.
Okay. All right, Marcy, so I'm going to put you in the hot seat also a little bit, because I think we're going to, curious how, if you've followed here, I'm not sure if you've also built subforms.
I was under the impression that a checklist was going to work better for us because all of our requirements all of our training is just one time. So I was not building.
Okay. Yep. And that's totally fine. Just curious if that worked or if this made sense to you. And then,
it does make sense.
Okay. What I might do here is show one form where I think what I'll do is show a form where we can add a questionnaire, but you'll see how that questionnaire isn't going to be perfectly aligned. So we have to separate concerns for these parent education types that require those different questionnaires. Okay, we'll do that next. And then I will spend the last 30 minutes on showing the checklist unless there's other questions. Brittany and Melissa, you guys, I think, are building out for Stanford Sierra. Are you guys following? Do you want to see anything in addition to this that we've talked about so far? What did I want to do?
Sorry, I'm thinking.
Yeah, okay. It's okay.
For me right now, I think this is okay.
Okay.
It's easy to follow.
All right, good. Excellent. Okay, cool. So all I've done is go and simplify what fields are on my sub form. I don't really need to show who entered it. The entered by will show you, it does record the family's name when they do it versus when your team does it. So it's a form of audit for your team. But I think, honestly, less is more on some of these forms so that they're clear, and then showing details forms or longer edit forms will be better for you to display more information rather than these subforms having really hefty subforms here. Okay. All right, next thing that I want to show you is, let's say that the older child adoption parent education record, or let's do like this domestic workshop. They need to have a specific form that is asked for it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go to from the landing page again. I'm going to go advanced options, add a subform, and I'm going to build a specific form to that type of training. So I'm going to choose parent education, family portal, domestic workshop training. Okay. Oops, Control C, there and there. This is going to be a multi-record. It's going to be a view form. It's going to be a single row. Okay, so we'll add the fields. I'm adding multiple fields, and I'm doing the date. I don't want to show that. The hours earned and the topic type. Save. Okay, so we've got a simple form. Now this is going, if I go here, is already on this landing page, and it is going to duplicate it at this point. Right, so it's going to be shown twice, which is kind of weird. Why would I do that? What I want to do is go back to this domestic workshop training, and under advanced options, I'm going to go really advanced options and click filters and criteria. And now I might say that this is actually only going to show parent education type or title equals domestic workshop. Okay. So now if I go here and refresh the screen, this top subform is going to look the same, but this one is now filtered to just the one. Okay. Separating out the subforms allows us to have different edit forms. So we will go through the step of building another form, another edit form with all kinds of other questions that are domestic workshop related. So I'm going to do parent education, advanced options, really advanced options, and create new form. Do, family portal. And I'll do domestic workshop questionnaire. Copy that, paste that there. This is a one at a time and an edit form. And this time I'll set it up as a vertical because I think it'll look better for a family to edit this. So need to remember that under advanced options, advanced form properties, I need to set this as a public form. And then this is my domestic workshop training. I'm going to double check that that one is also set as a public form. Okay. Okay, so I'm jumping back to my domestic workshop questionnaire. And I'll add a field. I'm going to create a new field because I don't actually have, you know, any questions for this yet. And I'm not actually going to do anything super special except for write in question 1. Okay, whatever your question is, I'll set that as a text box, multi-line. I might change the field length to make it unlimited so it's a big memo box. I'm going to add one more. Question 2. I'm pressing Control Enter to move on through the screens. This will be a large multi. And then I might add one more. Question 3. Okay, just so you can see that I'm repeating it a lot. The date, that is a large. So we've got a bunch of questions here. And then I will actually go ahead and add the acknowledgement, the date of completion, and that's that. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this form over here to this subform, right? That's just about the workshop. Advanced options, form properties. On my edit, I'm choosing the domestic workshop questionnaire. Okay, so they both need to be public forms. The edit and add records can only choose one at a time. Forms. Okay. So now if I go here, I'm going to have a green pencil. And when I go in and edit it, I'll be editing the questionnaire instead of that where I'm uploading a certificate. I might also ask for the certificate, but here's my, you know, type question 1, whatever. Lorem. Gibson generator. There we go. Grab some stuff in here. Cool. Grab that and pull this in, right? Stick that in. Okay, and press save. So, oh, shucks. I did not set where that was going to send me to. So I need to do that. This right here, advanced options, and my public form is setting redirect to another SAM form. I'm going to take them back to the family portal. That would have caught us there. Totals on the subform for the training hours. Yes, there is a way to show totals. So let me show this, and let's actually check it out on the public form because I'm not 100% if it shows us totals on public forms or not. So we'll test that out here. Let me just show you that real quick. So remember, I had just not told it where it was going to take me. And because I'm logged into the site as well as the public form as the family, Sam's acting a little bit differently. Jess, would you let the rest of the team know that we're hanging out till 11:30 with folks here? Thanks. Now, if I go in here, I can go back and edit, right? There's my questions. When I press save, now I'm taken back to the family portal. So it's checking out some of how things are set, making sure all your settings are right. One of the things that I think is super important is just to always test when you build something, test it out. And we're happy to help kind of navigate where any differences need to be made to make it better too for flow. Okay, so let's talk about the titles, or I'm sorry, what am I talking about? The totals, not titles, totals. Okay, so I'm going to go find this from the table screen. So I'm going to edit field names to get sort of back to default. I'm going to go to parent education. And down at the bottom of this table properties screen shows us all the forms that this is used on. And so I'm wanting to go to this family portal for the landing page. This is what we've been working on today. One of the things that needs to be done is so what Heather was asking is if the hours earned can start to summarize. So first things first, I need to open this field up, and it needs to be set to allow totals. So advanced field properties, and then in here, I usually use the browser's button to look for totals. So there's this option to show field titles on forms and reports. I'm setting that as yes. Okay. And so then on this form, you know, I honestly think that it, does it do that? I'm going to form properties. And here I select show totals. Okay, so it's under the form properties screen. You could also show like all your records, or some of your records, you might just want to show the top 3 or 5, right? Like a communications, you might not want to show all hundreds of communications, but rather like a trimmer version of them. Okay, so that's another option that's right here. You might also hide the form when it's empty. So for example, that domestic workshop form, we might not want to see that if it's an international program. So setting the form to be hidden when empty is going to be really important there. They don't have that particular type of education. Now, if I go there and I'm going to jump back to our family portal, and if I refresh the screen over here, if it works on public forms, it should total up. So it will show the totals as I add hours earned, which I did not add on my edit form. So this would sort of look like what it's like for your team to deal with this. They're in here, they know parent education records are coming in, and you say, oh yeah, that's a 2-hour training. This PR is, I don't know, 4 hours. Behavior for teens, 3-hour training. And this domestic workshop is a 10-hour training. Okay. So now if we go back to our family portal and refresh the screen, we start to get calculated hours so that they can see. So what I like, this sort of showed 2 things is just the fact that SAM is dynamic. Yes, the totals work on public forums, which I think is great. So they can see their time sort of rolling up and what they need to have completed. But your team's interaction and the family's interaction are working together. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome, Heather. That totals can be shown on other subforms too. So like while we're really focused on parent education here, the tools that I'm showing can be used for all other multi-record tables that you want to build forms about and put those forms onto your family portal or anywhere else in the system. Okay. Let's see. Is there any other questions here? Otherwise, I'm going to switch over and show checklists, because I do think that they're a good option for, like I mentioned earlier, the sort of like one time around amount of, the one-time training that needs to be done for families if they're not sort of needing this periodic updates. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave those. I'm going to start from the home screen. And this always feels nice. I'm going to open up this family portal separately, but then all the rest of this, I'm going to let it go. Okay. All right. So from the to access the checklist, it's under settings, checklist configuration. We're going to do this under the family checklist or under your corresponding entity type that you're working with. Here I'd already started a section called parent education. I did build my parent education on the home study table to allow an option if there's an updated home study or some sort of period that needs to happen. I do not think that I would build a checklist section off of parent education records in this case. I think it's going to be too many checklist sections, because for every parent education record, you'd have a different checklist section. And I just don't think it's going to roll up nicely for you. I think I'd recommend either putting this on the case, putting it on the home study, or putting these education records on a table, like a provider year table that's specific to your different time frames for which parent education must be completed. I would say this works really well if you have required trainings. This is the training course that your families are on. If it is, you know, they can read whatever book they want, this might not be the best way to go about it. So we'll want to, that might be a combination of the two. Like, oh, did you read any books this year? Here's, you know, a sub form underneath the checklist for parent education. Which gives me a question I want to ask, that someone else brought up. Maybe it was even Brittany on our community call. Did you bring up, Brittany, having different checklists per topic? Like, for example, having a checklist of orientation parent education, and then, oh, here's all these books that I've read that I want to do a book report. So having a checklist on the side that is directly specific to parent education, as opposed to a checklist that's specific to home study preparation.
I think so. I think I described it in the way, are we able to break the entire checklist configuration up in different pages?
Right. And by different pages, do you mean different forms? So like, instead of having a single checklist, you'd have a different link that's linking to a checklist.
Yes. Yeah.
And I did not ask, but actually when we jump on our team call, I will ask. I think the answer is no, but now that I'm seeing it played out through parent education, having all parent education to the side with parent education specific orientation trainings that are required for everybody, and then also utilizing subforms, it's clicking for me of use cases that I think would be fantastic. That would really help to see things separate, right? So I will get back to you on that. For now, let's pretend that the one checklist functions, okay? So you'll choose which table, and that can totally be a discussion. Marcy, for your team, I think the case is probably going to work just fine as a table for you to build this from. Okay, so you'll add your items. So let's add a new item. Mine again is built off the home study, but no problem. I'm going to select parent education, and then none of these parent education fields are going to be built either on the case or on the home study or any other table. So you'll probably be choosing create new field all the time. Here you will select the table that you build from, right? So it is that concept of where is it going? I want to keep mine on the home study so that it's consistent. Otherwise, Sam will give me an error. And let me pull out, this will be the connected child. Okay. So I might require some kind of response time for this. I think response time is going to be better for your internal team than it really will be for your families. Deciding who's responsible, not really going to be you guys. It'll be the family, so you might not set that part. Then you can decide if you are going to upload a document. So this is, do you want that certificate to go with it? I'm going to set that as yes. I will create a new document type. So I'm just clicking the little link so I don't have to retype this. This creates an upload field for us and puts a document type into the system. We're definitely going to show this to clients. And we can give them the document for download, which might be a PDF that they have to read. Okay, that's, I think, going to work best here. The PDF could be linked to, or on the PDF could link off to other web pages and things. And so I'm going to show this piece first, and then I will come back and add a form for if the connected child has some questions, that we can link a form and they can answer those questions too. Okay. Good. So that's going to be added there. Adding a checklist section is going to be the exact same set of steps for every required training that you have. This right here, I need to go to the family's record, and I've already added the checklist section here, but I'm going to click add section with items again to refresh it so that my latest training is shown on here. Oops, actually it doesn't even want to do that. Why doesn't it? I wonder if that's connected to the right home study. So I'm going to remove this, remove that. Now if I jump over to the family portal, and I click on the checklist, I'm going to see my 4 things. As I come in here, I can upload a document, and the completed date will be done. This will be added here on the family side, or internally for your families. If I refresh this screen, or for your team, the connected child is here. And I'm not really sure why Sam is not participating, but that's not what I want to do quite yet, is go look at that. And then as an internal team, you can see that certificate, right? Which is going to be that page that I uploaded before. Okay, let's say though that you actually, for some of these, you want a questionnaire. So maybe this domestic workshop has a questionnaire to it, like we'd added before. We're not going to use it based off parent education. In this example, yeah, we won't do that in this example. You could, but I think the thing is if you have a separate parent education, I'm thinking through it, and I have an idea that like one parent education record could contain all of the orientation checklist, let's say, and then you have separate parent education records added for older child if that's relevant, or HIV if that's relevant, or whatever, right? Like additional ones that are relevant to their specific adoption type or program type. So I think that could be an idea that could work and utilize the structure of multi-record table with the parent education all together. So essentially their orientation checklist that's required, it's for everybody, could be 30 hours instead of having 10 records that title up to 30 hours. Once they've completed that one orientation record, they've earned that 30 hours, and then they get additional for the addendums that are needed for their program. Okay, I'm going to go from here to settings. And so let me wrap back around. What I'm doing is creating the form. I'm going to base a form based off of the case. Off the home study in my situation. But like for Marcy, you might build it off the case, I think would probably work just fine for you guys. I'm going to create a new form. Okay, so I went to settings, form customizer, create a new form. So I think in this example, I've shown you, or this webinar today, 3 different ways to add a new form. Then you can kind of get around from lots of different ways, okay? So I'm going to base this on the family, and underneath the case, I'm going to base mine off the home study. So I'm going to title this Family Portal Domestic Workshop Questionnaire 2. Okay. I'm going to do this as a one at a time. It's an edit form. I'm set it as vertical, and I don't need a container form for that. My after save form, I'm not going to set that quite yet because I'm going to click advanced options and set this as a public form. And then I will go back to the form and public form properties. Now I'm going to take the user to the family portal. Excuse me, I actually don't want to take them back there. I want to take them right back to the checklist is where I want to take them because that's where they started from. So I want to take them right back into that checklist section when they're done with this. Now we're going to add fields. And all of these are going to be new fields. So when you're titling fields, you can have 2 different titles, the internal title and then the public form title. So you might do this as like, I don't know, Family Portal, Domestic Workshop. Question 1. Okay. And then over here, if I scroll down on the field title, oops, Control B, here I'm going to put in the public form title, question 1. Okay, because that's really all I want the family to see. This is our text box, large multi-line, change the size, press save. I'm going to do one more. I will actually do a different. So I'm still going to call this the same. I sort of want to get these fields to all be in the same area when I have to choose them, if I want to choose them on a different form or on a report or something else in order to find them very quickly. That's why I'm labeling them similarly. And let's say this is the acknowledgement of completion. And actually, I'm just like, don't want to do that. Sign here to let us know this training is complete, right? Or to verify, however you want to phrase that. I'll put this as a text box and keep it as a regular, so it'll be a signature line. Okay, so you can obviously add more fields. I'm not going to do that right now. What I am going to do is connect this form onto our checklist. So here we're on the checklist configuration. I'm going to go to the domestic workshop and I'm going to edit this. And here on this form to use, I'm going to do family workshop or family portal domestic workshop 2. Okay, so now internally you can see this form here, and externally on the public form, the family can see this form so that I can go in here and complete that questionnaire. Okay, and we're taking right back to the checklist because that's where I told them to set it up. The date completed did not get entered because I didn't have it on the form. I certainly could ask that they go in here and upload the certificate again. I could go back to the form. I could create a new certificate field. I think it actually could go on the form because it actually does exist already. Does this take us to the form? So we'll go here and, oh gosh, what's it called? The domestic document upload. So we could upload that certificate right there, and we could actually enter in the domestic workshop date, so they can enter that too. So now on this form, family is going in to complete it. I can upload, my certificate and say that I did it on 8/1/20 and finish that. Okay, so now we've got the date. Our upload is done. It's all connected. Internally, it will all be connected in here too. When you link to forms, the form to use is accessed right here. And so your team can see this too. I think it shows, like this if you don't have an internal sibling form set up for these public forms. But we don't really want to be taken out to the families page. We might actually want to go ahead and set up the internal form, which this is that workshop. That setting is here under advanced options, create internal sibling form. That's it. It's just a link. It's done. If I go here now and refresh this page and I click here, we're actually going to be looking at an internal view for your team. It's simplified, and you can stay inside instead of going out to the public form. This will allow you to open that document. All of that would be there. Let's see. So, oh gosh. Okay. We have about 5 minutes left to this. What sort of questions? That's a lot. I think there's different ways that you can go about this. And so it's a little bit in careful planning to sort of see what, and think about which of these ways might work best for your team, which you prefer, what you might already have families engaged in, and what are they used to versus trying something new. Kind of would love to hear your thoughts on any of these, if either method sort of struck you as better. What are your thoughts, guys? Or team on here with us? Marilyn, if you're here and listening, you're not muted. Would you like to share?
We are looking into the process of setting up the family portal. We haven't done that yet. I know Janelyn takes advantage of checklists for our adoptive families, and our foster parents admins are using the parent education. So we're utilizing some aspects and slowly getting into more complex ones. So these trainings have been good, and we're going to go back and watch each of them where we can pause and kind of watch them together and bounce things off of each other.
Yep. Okay. That totally makes sense. Marcy, now that I've showed the second part, what thoughts do you have? Does the checklist seem like it's going to work for you?
I think so. I think it's going to eliminate some documents that we're having families print and sign and send back to us. So now they can just fill out a form instead, which will be super helpful. We have some education that it's like they complete it and then they have a conversation with their caseworker, and the caseworker goes through some questions and types notes. Is there a way to have like an internal questionnaire or form linked to a checklist item that the family is not completing?
Yeah. So one, absolutely, you could be notified that they completed that. It could take you to that internal sibling form. And, oh shucks, let me see if this works. Control-Shift-T. So this is my internal, this is my workshop 2. If I refresh here, oh, there it is. What I'm thinking is, okay, so I'm going to open the internal sibling form. It's linked at the top. If I unlink it, now I think, let's double check this, that if it's unlinked, it doesn't link. So, okay, what can happen here then? I think I can relink it. I think I know how to do it. It's under advanced options and you choose the form. So if they become unlinked, they can go and be relinked. But on this form, we might have a sidebar that's like your, it would be your internal questions. Or on a, so it would be a separate form that your team member would open up their responses and then be able on the sidebar to see social worker questionnaire, right? If that's what you wanted to call it, they click that and then they can complete that. Or it could be on the checklist itself as, let's say it was the domestic workshop that they needed to ask question, is like domestic workshop social worker questionnaire. And, I'm thinking actually they can't, you probably want to complete that or have that as a checklist item. But I don't think internally that the form, if it's not a public form, it doesn't show up there.
Okay.
Does it? Let me think about it. I might have to play with that a little bit. And what I'm thinking is, does that then end up with over here on parent education, create new field, the case, the home study workshop, social worker questionnaire. And if I don't really want a document type, I really would want to use a different form. And I don't think the form is going to link. I may have to do a sort of like coming back around to that, a little side video to let you guys see how I would set that up, Marcy.
Okay.
Yeah, let me think about that, because this is only going to take us into public forms, and that's not really what we're trying to get you to.
Right.
So what I am thinking would be better is when it's connected as that internal sibling form, having a sidebar where it is, where your questions are right there. So your team is taken to that sidebar with the answers, and then your team can ask questions. Curious if you, this is such an extension of how the forms work. Curious if your team, they need to see the responses, right, in order to ask questions about them?
Yes, in some, yes.
Okay. I will follow up with everybody with this. Thanks, Brittany. I will follow up with everybody because I have an idea that may work on the internal sibling form as like adding extra questions. I'm just not sure if it works, because it's pushing the bounds of what I've done before in the forms, but I will come up with a solution for you. Like two options. Yeah. And I know we're talking Friday, maybe. My assumption is we'll start actually pulling some of this together and building it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Anybody else have any last questions? Yikes. Okay, well then we'll call this one a wrap. That's a long one. This is definitely going to be a call that needs to be rewatched again and again to remember what was kind of going on here. I will get with Jess and we'll work on that additional piece that Marcy was just asking about, so I can have another video to share with you guys, and we'll link everything up. If you have questions, you definitely know how to find us through the support link or help. And if you want any support in strategizing the best method of parent education for handling for your requirements, you can always schedule a call with us as well. Okay. I look forward to talking to you all, and have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everybody.